Good evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our reaction review discussion of Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Part 4.
Yes.
Something that came up on TikTok. TikTok can be used for good. I swear. Gentleman, his screen name is at Chun, CHUN 2D2, number 2.
Okay.
And it popped up on my my For You page, and he's like, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but with that being said, here's a conspiracy that I think is going on with Kenobi. Unlike all the other Disney Plus shows, they are part 1, part 2, part 3. It's a 6-episode series, so there's 6 parts.
Right.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's story, movie-wise, is over 6 parts. The prequels and then the original trilogy.
But he dies in the first.
Right, but he's in Empire and he's in Return of the Jedi as a Force ghost.
But he's also in. All right.
Okay. That part doesn't really, okay, it's a bit of a stretch, whatever. But he did point out, if you go off of that process, the first movie is Phantom Menace. In Phantom Menace, we have a pod race scene. The first part 1, we had a pod race scene with Luke trying to do a pod race. And the second movie is called Attack of the Clones. There's a clone in there trying to get money. In the part 3, or Revenge of the Sith, there's somebody is set on fire episode. So then he said, look out for part 4. Part 4, A New Hope, is Obi-Wan Kenobi sneaking around a base trying to save Leia.
But he doesn't sneak around the base trying to save her.
He sneaks around the base so they can get the ship off.
But Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't try to save her in...
Right. But this episode had all of the A New Hope feel to it, and Fallen Order. But it felt like sneaking into the Death Star, sneaking around. They're trying to save Leia.
Yeah.
It felt like A New Hope.
Okay.
It's not a great theory, but I think there's some legitimacy of parallels.
But that's Star Wars.
Right.
George Lucas just told the same story over and over again in different ways.
In multiple different ways. Yes. Yes. It's all parallel, it's all rhythm, it's all rhyming, it's all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this very much felt like A New Hope.
He has said that more than once.
Yeah.
That it should all flow. It's all like a rhyme or whatever.
Right.
So.
Right. I just think I love good conspiracy theories that kind of make you think for a second. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it definitely has that feel of the flow of Kenobi storytelling, which means the next episode, Vader's going to go wreck shop. Like again, he's going to go wreck shop again. But what did you think of this episode? I've seen it twice now. I'm going to go watch it again, but we got.
I want to punch Rive in the mouth even more.
Yes. You're torturing a 10-year-old girl,
right?
You're so evil.
And what do you think she's going to tell you? She's 10. Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was, Leia proving she's a badass even at 10. It kind of gives a little bit of weight to the torture scene in A New Hope, the implied torture scene in A New Hope, because this isn't the first time that that Vader or his Goonies have tried to torture her. So she's like, whatever. And like I said, you want to punch Riva in the mouth, and you just want her to get her comeuppance, but it's not happening.
I saw a lot of I won't say a lot. There's been some complaining about the writing for Riva, and I my little rant about the racism stuff is not what this conversation is about. It is about they don't like the way she's written. And the reason they don't like the way she's written is because you don't feel for her. You're not supposed to feel for her.
No.
You're supposed to hate her right now.
Right.
And
Which
I'm sure
it's written and acted very well.
Yes. I think at some point in time they may address why she is the way she is.
Yeah, I mean,
but
they kind of dropped a few little hints, that she had a droid when she was younger, and so even if they don't fully come out, what you expect to happen is that she dies, right? And in her dying breath, she says, I was a youngling, or and you didn't come save me.
Yeah.
I am absolutely okay if they don't do that, because that's definitely a trope that you're like, I kind of hope they don't do it, but then also you're like, maybe I kind of hope that they do, so you have some closure to her story.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I found the Hall of Dead People disturbing. What is that for?
Yes. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something I wanted to talk about. So the rule of 2 is that there's only 2 Sith at a time, 2 proper Sith at a time.
Right.
But all the Inquisitors are all been manipulated by the dark side, or they've been tortured into hate and that kind of thing, which is kind of what I think has happened with Reva. And the Inquisitors themselves are hate-filled Force wielders who are taking that all out on other Force users. And the idea that Palpatine is trying to get rid of all the Force users in the galaxy, or corrupt them into his police force.
Right.
I love that story part.
But why are you keeping the bodies? Why are you
keeping the bodies and the trophies and the youngling helmet?
Yeah.
And a youngling. It's
so creepy.
There's a thing.
Serial killer.
Right. Oh.
Because serial killers keep trophies, and they sometimes keep the bodies in freezers so that they can go visit them.
Or go talk to them or whatever. There's a thing within the Inquisitors too that is, and they've kind of hinted at it a little bit without really coming out and saying it, but they're constantly backstabbing, they're constantly fighting against each other and everything.
Yeah.
But having this reminder of their inhumanity, for lack of a better term, is another way for Vader and Palpatine to kind of keep them powered by the dark side, by having that constant reminder that they are not who they used to be, and here's an example, and here's an example.
Right.
But like when I saw that the first time, I'm like,
why?
That is, Star Wars at times can get really weird, and Star Wars at times can get really dark, because you're dealing with the idea of light side and dark side, fascism and the mechanism versus the nature, and all that kind of stuff. That's the darkest thing I think they've shown us. And then they add a youngling, frozen with his eyes open, with the helmet still on. It's just, it's the Inquisitors are always kind of been in kind of like the monster, the demigod to the monster god that is Vader. Because nobody really knows that Palpatine is who he
is.
So
right now everybody thinks that Vader's the
biggest bad. Right. And Vader's the only one that knows, and other than a couple of servants, that Palpatine is actually the proper Sith Lord. But I can't believe they did it. That's part of the reason why I love this episode, is that they showed the true darkness that is within the Inquisitorius and the Inquisitors themselves, and just how far they have to go to keep the dark side energy going.
Yeah.
And just I love it. I don't, that's the wrong way of saying it. It's I love it. I'm sorry. I love that they were allowing themselves to tell that part of the story, because when they do that and they show Riva interrogating Leia and trying to mind meld with her, and then they were going to torture her.
Yeah.
And we all have a love for Leia as it is.
Yeah.
And now we love her even more because she's being played by Vivian, this 10-year-old amazing actress who's embodying Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
Like, it's just amazing and so well done.
I'll never tell you.
So you show this horror that is this keepsake room.
Yeah.
And then they turn around, they go to torture this character, this person that we love so much.
Yeah.
It just adds to the tension of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. I can't it's just so much. A couple of little like beats and stuff that I really liked. I did say that this kind of feels like A New Hope, with them kind of sneaking around, Obi-Wan kind of sneaking around, trying to deactivate the tractor beak and the tractor beam. And this one, he's sneaking around to save Leia. But a lot of the same beats are there. You have the mic on the counter shot. You have Kenobi like force pushing sound to the other way to get the stormtroopers to go the other way. Mm-hmm. There's the idea of them like going through the docking bay and with everybody there and stuff and fighting their way out. Like it's a lot of those same beats, but also it's a lot of beats from Fallen Order. Cal Kestis has to go to Inquisitorius. He swims under the tower, sneaks in. That's how he gets to the final boss with Vader. The hallway that they have, the whole hallway thing is the same hallway that, or a similar hallway that Vader and Cal fight in Fallen Order. So there's a lot of touches for New Hope, a lot of touches for Fallen Order, and I really appreciate that.
Cool.
I thought that was nice. I guess Ice Cube's son is not Quinlan Vos. The entire internet like cried, one big tear.
Yeah, because it seems like it's potentially not a very big role.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe he could go with them. I don't know.
It depends on what they want to do in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah. But
it feels like we had a part he really wanted to be in Star Wars.
Yeah.
So here, I'm selfish. I want a proper multi-movie deal. Like, I'm sorry. If I'm gonna be a Star Wars actor, I don't want to be a bit part in a thing.
Daniel Craig was a stormtrooper.
Yeah, but it's Daniel Craig. I mean, but
that's true.
I
don't know if he's got, like, other than Straight Outta Compton, I don't know what else he's been in.
He was in he was one of the soldiers in King of Monsters.
Oh yeah, he was, but that wasn't a very big part either. Big part. He was there for 5 or 10 minutes, but
it made complete sense that he was Quinlan Vos. Like he fits the MO. He's probably a little bit more stocky than he was drawn in Clone Wars.
Yeah,
but it fit.
Yeah,
and you made a point of dropping Quinlan's name in the last episode.
Yeah,
and so it was like, okay, this makes a little put some dreads on him and call him Quinlan.
Yeah,
put the yellow tattoo across his face. But I want Quinlan to be. I've always seen him as an indigenous kind of person.
Yeah,
so I'd like to see an indigenous person. The guy who plays from Magnificent Seven, the new one, the Redbeard or Redface or whatever. I'd love to see him play Quinlan.
Yep,
it would be really kind of a cool.
He's very thin though. He's not very stocky.
Yeah, but Quinlan's kind of wiry.
Okay.
So that that would kind of work. In my headcanon, that's what it works. So, the other couple of things, Tala putting herself on the line, proving that proving that she is actually in on this, and that I love that when she was addressing Reva, that she was not intimidated, but definitely respectful, but also a little scared. But she was also not backing down from Reva.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a couple of times where I was like, "Oh, it's jig is up." And she turned around and pulled another rabbit out of her hat, and put her neck on the line. I mean, she could have died easily a couple of times, but she kept going and kept going. And I I kind of I was like, I thought it was curious that Reva thought she was really on the Empire side, and so I wonder if there's some story there where she was, and that's how she kind of got this clearance, and she's actually, the story she told was actually in reverse, or true,
true-ish,
but in reverse, like she wasn't doing it for the Empire, she was doing it for the cause.
For the cause, right? We're not like quite to the rebellion yet.
And that she was actually a spy, but for the other side. They touched on it a little bit, and then there was a bunch of other stuff going on. So
I like I like that Reva. We're going back to Reva. It's called the Reva Show now. We're just going with that. But I like that Reva questions everything, even if the story makes sense. And she even says, "I like a good liar. Either you're lying for me or you're lying against me."
Yeah.
But I like that Tala reacted to that, but she also didn't back down from it. Right? She was definitely like,
and Leia too.
Leia too. Yes, I love her being all. Is this a staring contest?
Yeah,
just straight out, just defiant,
sassy
Leia.
AF.
But I just like that Tala, and then even when she got called at her, she BS'd her way through security, and pulled rank on the security guy, and then at the station, she's talking to the mic. The guy sitting next to her can hear.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes up, "This is not your station," and she goes and kicks his ass, and he comes back and sits down. I just she's all in on whatever it is, and for me, because part of the reason I love the Star Wars so much of the story is this is tip of the iceberg storytelling. I would love to see a 5-issue comic of she joined the Empire because she thought she was doing good for the betterment of people, and then she came to the realization that the Empire is hot garbage. Which I'm so glad that they're kind of alluding to in this series.
Yeah,
they haven't really done it too much in other mediums, live action mediums. They kind of talked about it in the Clone Wars. They talked about it in Rebels, but they really deal with it in the comics and the books about how just devastatingly bad they are.
Yeah,
and that we're going to get a lot of that in Andor.
Yeah,
and that's really what I think a lot of the basis of the first season is. But I'd love to see her story being told with the idea of to make that decision to put yourself on the line when you can be taken out by any stormtrooper, any officer, and force wielding, lightsaber wielding badasses who could pick you up and throw you across the room.
Right.
She just doesn't blink at it.
She doesn't back down. So, and then so it is the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So Obi-Wan, so him in the water, which was
in the back the tank. Yeah.
No, in the water, in the first one, where him
when they're swimming, with the breathing, with the Phantom Menace, yeah.
So it's like a callback or whatever, and then he finally kind of gets control of his force using.
Yes. I actually, in that swimming scene, I wanted actually a smaller fish to kind of sneak up to try to bite him, and then a bigger fish come on and grab him. not that he saw it, just like there's always a bigger fish. I liked the back to tank scene too. Some people are going to complain about it because they were using it as a flashback thing in Book of Boba Fett, which I love because that's the point of the isolation while you float in is to meditate, focus, think about on whatever. So, but the yin and yang contrast between him Vader, Anakin in their back to tanks and they're going back and forth.
Yep.
I really like that. I really like that they kind of mirrored each other through that process because now they've both been burnt. One a lot more than the other one,
right?
But after that meditative state, he comes out and he's got a little bit more of a Jedi robe on. It's still not his Jedi robe. He's still not Obi-Wan.
Right.
He's still Ben. Everybody still calls him Ben.
Yeah.
But him on the ship trying to move the little box.
Yeah.
And now in the fights in the hallway, he drew his sword to protect someone else, not to hide behind it, like he did in the Vader fight.
Right.
And then he was full on, probably as powerful as he's been shown on screen by holding back the ocean.
Right.
Long enough for them to get busted through, and then he throws the ocean at a bunch of stormtroopers. And that's about the most badass thing I've seen Kenobi do ever. And I watched the Clone Wars. But yeah, it's he had to go through the trauma of last week.
Yeah.
And facing Vader. And Tala even told him that, like, you just need time to move on. And he's like, I don't know if you can move on. I don't know if there is a moving on.
Right.
But he is definitely allowing himself to open up to that thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he's just been, I mean, we talked about it in the first, definitely in the first episode, that he's just been kind of hiding. And he just took all of that and just put it in a little box and put it in the corner and didn't open it.
Yeah.
And, he's just been living day to day, going to work, watching after Luke and watching him grow up and just not acknowledging any of that stuff that happened. And so now he's kind of forced to, especially with the fact that Anakin is alive and he had no idea, right? So it's all kind of just been forced on him, probably a little quickly, but
over a few days.
Yeah,
it wasn't like all of a sudden like, oh, maybe I should start tapping into it a little bit. No, it's like here,
and you need to get up to speed very quickly.
Yeah, and not for, and I like too that they're addressing it as not for him. We need you for Leia and Luke.
Yeah,
and
because he would have just.
We need Obi-Wan Kenobi. We don't need old hermit Ben.
Right. He would have just kept doing what he was doing until there was some catalyst to pull him out of it. So
and the thing that I guess a couple people have said this online, but in his depression, I'm going to keep calling it that until somebody tells me differently. But in his depression, he had shut himself off from the Force. If something actually happened to Luke, he wouldn't have been able to do anything. He buried his lightsaber in the sand. He had turned himself off from the Force.
Yeah.
He'd been living in not great circumstances in that under the rock thing.
Yeah.
And so even if something would have happened, he wouldn't have been able to do anything about it.
Yeah, he was a very, very good protector because he wasn't keeping up. He wasn't keeping up on his skills to protect him.
Yeah, and even
Owen was probably a better protector than he was at that point.
He was. The thing too with Obi-Wan is we know eventually he goes and becomes part of the living Force and part of this ability to beyond the grave speak to other Force users like Luke, like Rey. And so we have to go from his depressed hermit self to at least dealing with the Force again, being able to wield it at the level he was before.
Right.
And then the teachings that Yoda was talking about at the end of Revenge of the Sith and say, okay, you need to work on this. And I think what's a little speculation going forward, I think by the end of this, he has addressed his depression and everything that happened with Anakin is when Qui-Gon replies to him. And then they will be able to work on it together. There is a section in a certain point of view where they talk. It's Qui-Gon and Kenobi. Qui-Gon's a Force ghost, and they talk. So and it's it's canon. It's more stories. Those are really fun stories, but some of them are really weird. Whatever. But that idea of that story, we need to get to that point. So when he gets a New Hope, he can give himself over to the Force,
right, and know that he's still gonna be there. Be there? Question mark. Because he says there. What's the line that he says before he gives himself over to let Vader take him out? Something like there are other worlds than these, but that's not it.
Yeah. I will become more powerful. Then that's not it either.
That's the other one.
But yeah, there is definitely that idea of we need to get to that point from where he was.
Yeah.
The two other things I want to talk about before we get out of here, Reva getting force choked and then saying, "Hey, I put a tracker on them," and it's the droid Lola. Again, Lola's amazing. We're gonna order one because they're just cool. It did come out this week that Carrie at 10 years old had a bird named Lola.
Oh,
so like that's kind of nice little wink and nod. But I don't know if it was on purpose, but it was a contingent that Reva put in, which I'm totally okay with, because you have plans upon plans upon plans.
Oh yeah,
it's a very Palpatine thing to do. And then the other thing too at the end of the episode was they're on the ship. They lost Wade. Tala is helping kind of console the other. Now you're an army. You're no longer just thieving people, sneaking people around. And then I love the shot. You have the two grieving friends on one side, and then you have the two grateful friends on the other side. And Leia reaches over and grabs Kenobi's hand.
Yeah,
and there's no words, there's no dialogue. It's just the physical, emotional scene that they're showing that she appreciates him, loves him, whatever you want to say, and is the reason that she names her son Ben. Because Ben saved her.
Yeah.
That's why she called Ben Ben. And everybody was like, I'm not trying to get on a diatribe here, but everybody complained that she knew Ben for 5 minutes. And I'm like, tip of the iceberg storytelling, just give it a minute. But why would you call your son Ben and not Luke, not Bale, not what? I could pick 1,000 different names.
Yeah,
and they named him Ben for a reason.
Yeah,
they just showed you the reason.
Yeah,
and she understood it at 10.
Yeah,
about who this guy was and how important she is, and how important he is to her, but how important that he is to the galaxy as a whole.
Yeah,
and I love that storytelling. I'm tired of the conversation that's being going on right now about we know where the story is going, and so why are we telling it?
Yeah.
And it's like for scenes like this.
Yeah, because there's so much other stuff that I mean they're kind of having to backwards compatible backwards storytelling.
Very Lucas.
It is. It is. But only because the way he wants to tell stuff is like in the future and we're not there yet, so we can't tell it like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they're definitely these kind of stories are filling in, like you said, the from a different point of view, from a certain point of view. I mean, even the title is like oh yeah, you'll hear it in I don't remember what movie it was that I heard, and I was like, hey, that's that. Oh, I get it now. It's that book. But they're telling all these stories that nobody necessarily asked for. We don't care about the conversation that the two droids had while they were working on whatever, but it fills in all that backstory that is out there that can be told because it's so big.
Because the galaxy is a galaxy. FYI, it takes us a year and a half to get to Mars, and that's the closest planet to us. A galaxy is infinitely times bigger than that. So you have all of this scope and scale and different things to tell. But because of that, some people have complained we got to get away from the Skywalker in this time period. But I don't want to yet. I'm not ready yet because I feel like there's so many holes and not holes. There's so many gaps where you can tell.
Yeah.
I want to know the story of the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
I would love to know that story. And it doesn't have to be I give me 4 episodes of them deciding to set it up and doing it, and then all of a sudden Kenobi is there one day. Give me that. But it's why are we telling these stories? Why are we?
Yeah.
The meaning behind these stories is why I keep coming back to them, and so I just love that they, with a hand touch and a look, you've explained so much that goes on. It happens in 30, 40 years in the story, and I love that. They have spent a lot of time in this show showing, not telling, storytelling, and that's why it's hitting me so well, is because they're not having to sit there and hold your hand and tell you. It's up to you to figure it out, and and that's
to get off of the, to wrap up or whatever, but Disney, I don't necessarily know that this direction is a Disney, you need to do it this way, but they've done the same thing with Marvel, right? And you built your castle on this franchise, the Avengers in Marvel and the Skywalker saga in Star Wars, and you can't just cut the cord and step away.
Right.
Especially when there's so many other stories to tell that maybe don't involve Luke and Leia, or maybe they do, but you kind of step away a bit at a time, and you can tell other stories, other time periods, whatever, also, and kind of get people used to, like they're doing in Marvel. They are starting to kind of get people used to this whole multiverse idea and all this stuff, and so
younger Avengers, like new characters, new actors.
But we're stepping away from the Avengers slowly.
Right.
You still have people who were in the Avengers, just not the Avengers. And so, I mean, if you look at it that way, they're doing and can do the same thing with Star Wars.
And that's they kind of did it with the original trilogy, and then they stumbled into it because Lucas wanted to tell the prequels. And so we are now to a new generation of people kids who want to watch these movies. And then we get done with that, and they said, okay, no more movies, but Lucas wants to tell a different story within the Clone Wars 6-7 years after the prequels, and so now you have a whole new generation of kids. Yeah. They keep redoing it over and over again to bring in the first one's free.
Yep.
That is our thoughts and discussions about Star Wars and the universe as a whole, and the Kenobi series. Let us know what you thought of our discussion and reaction to it in the comments down below. Please be nice. That's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.